Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome. We will be joining and starting in just a couple seconds. Bear with us. Thanks for being here. We'll get started in about 20 seconds. Welcome, welcome. Hello, everyone. It's great to see you. We are getting started. Thank you for being here on time. I want to say good morning to some, good afternoon, good evening to others. Welcome to this first week of what will be an 8-part workshop series. Thank you for joining us today. We're really happy to see so many people from all around the world on this webinar, also engaging with our social media and our website. We're going to be starting on time every week, so please try your best to join us on time as you all have. Thank you so much. You're going to be hearing from all of us. I just want to first quickly introduce a couple of us real quick, and then you'll hear from more people on our team. So first, my name is Justin. I'm based in Los Angeles. This is Ignacio. He is based in London, home of Controlling Chemsex, the charity that he founded and is CEO of. He's leading that out of the UK. Ignacio has been hearing from a lot of people all around the world for years. Really, people, asking about this growing need for support for Chemsex solutions, Chemsex support and resources. People seeking support are coming to us from all different places, right? Some are coming from rehab, some from 12-step programs, some from therapy. We really wanted to create a new resource where people could learn from home, stay anonymous, work at their own pace, and we wanted to keep this free at no cost so that people all around the world can find specific Chemsex support, whether they live in, New York City or, remote areas all around the world. I want to just share real quickly our website because we will be working off of this website throughout a lot of our workshops every week. And so if you just go to globalchemsextoolbox.com, I'll show you very easily here. This is our website, right? The homepage. When you go to Chemsex course at the tab at the top that you can see me hovering over, Chemsex course. Once you go here, you'll see our entire program, all 8 weeks. Right now, we're going to click on week 1, and everything you need for week 1 can be found here, right? So you'll be able to see some downloadable exercises that Ignacio is going to walk you through. There's also some recommended videos here that you can view on your own. There's a really powerful TED Talk that we're going to talk about in a bit and ask you to watch at the end.
Justin, sorry, you are not sharing the website.
Thank you for the note. I am going to share it now. Thanks for that. So when we're on the homepage, you can see Chemsex course right here. Does that look good, Ignacio, or no?
Yeah, now it's good.
Okay, great. So Chemsex course is here. Once you click on that, you can click on our course program week 1, and that's where you'll find everything you need. So throughout this webinar today, we're going to be referencing some things there. I just also want to walk you through kind of just the mechanics of what we'll be doing today and every Saturday for the next 8 weeks. So for about 60 to 90 minutes, we're going to be working live with Ignacio, founder of Controlling Chemsex. We're also going to be doing some written exercises together. We're going to be hearing from everyday people from all around the world, sharing recorded video testimonials about their experience recovering from Chemsex. And then we're going to have a few cameos from other well-known folks from our community who have stories and encouragement to share with all of us. We're going to want you to please take notes on paper, or you can write on your phone. You can email yourself, whichever format you prefer. We're going to be working off the website, as I said, and the homepage. All of that's there to help you. And then we're going to have breaks throughout the presentation for questions. You can put them in the Q&A feature that you see at the bottom of the Zoom screen. If we can't get to all your questions during the workshops, we're going to do our best to answer some of those on our Instagram page. But you can also email us at info@globalchemsextoolbox.com, and we're going to do our best to answer your questions there as well. We'll remind you of all of this throughout. I promise I'm going to hand it over to Ignacio in a little bit after we share an important video from one of our friends and advocates, Dr. David Fawcett. He is an author. He's a well-known and relied upon substance abuse expert. He's a sex therapist and a psychotherapist. He's based in Florida in the United States. I'm going to introduce you to Ignacio after this video, but we really wanted to hear from David Fawcett because he's a really talented man. He's the author of Lust, Men, and Meth. It's a gay man's guide to sex and recovery. It's a practical resource for recovery from meth and the restoration of healthy sex and intimacy. Dr. Fawcett outlines a lot of things in his book, Path Towards Healing, describing the phases of, physical and emotional and sexual recovery. We had a really nice long conversation with Dr. David Fawcett, and he'll be sharing his remarks throughout all 8 weeks. David wanted to share 2 success stories that are really important to highlight as we begin our workshop series together. This video is 4 minutes long, and we're going to hand it over to Ignacio when we're done. So bear with me as I share more screens and hopefully get this video to you in a second. Thanks for your patience. There we go. By the way, if the audio is no good on your end, you can view these videos on that same page that I showed you on our website.
When we think about chemsex, I think often we think about this hopeless state of constant relapse and pain, and perhaps even overdose and other catastrophic results that can occur with that. There are many success stories, and I think it's really important to highlight those. In the years I've worked with chemsex clients, there are many, countless success stories I can think of, but 2 come to mind that I think that exemplify some of the process. One is someone who, a friend of mine actually, not a client, who had a long career of methamphetamine use and other drugs, who ultimately became a dealer, a big dealer, in order to satisfy his own habit, who ultimately was arrested, spent 5 years in a federal prison here in the United States, and actually attributes his time in confinement to being able to stay sober because he was effectively removed from the drug and the temptation to use it. But when he came out, rebuilding his life, going back to graduate school, overcoming the stigma that goes with that state, really getting a job in the field, as many of us do in our own recovery. We pivot into this work ourselves. And in that way, one person at a time, through sponsorship and then through more formal training, becoming the executive director of a detoxification center over a few years, of course. But it was an incredibly powerful example of how we can take these experiences in our lives, the pain that we cause ourselves and others, the harm, the setbacks, the years that we lose, and really do something with that. We can take that internal experience and turn it outward and turn it into something useful, not only for ourselves to keep us sober on an ongoing basis, but to help other people as well to find their way. Such a powerful example. A second example I want to mention is something that really counteracts this idea that if I'm in recovery, I basically am going to forego any idea of sexual pleasure and satisfying sex, and especially if I get any kind of fetish play or kinky behavior. And it's true that very often those fetishes become very much a part of our experience that's associated with getting high and getting really high. And it's very difficult to think or consider about engaging or indulging in those fetishes in sobriety, because as soon as we do that, we start to think about all the ways that we could use drugs in that state. I have now found in my community and elsewhere, when I travel in the United States, I encounter folks that are able now to, and this is several years into recovery with years of sobriety, they're able to start to re-engage in their fetish play and their kinky behavior in a way that's very satisfying to them, and that does not trigger their use for drugs. The other thing I would say about that is that the secret, if there is one to that, is time, right? Recovery, understanding where our triggers are, knowing what to do if we do get triggered, but also to engage in that fetish play or kinky behavior with other sober folks. So these are guys that play with other people where there's no drugs involved, where they can engage in that play and it no longer triggers them to use the drug, but they can enjoy a full sexual life without the use of drugs. I think that's a really powerful message to convey. That's possible, and people are doing it.
Apologies for that video going out at the end there. Hopefully you could hear that all. I'm going to hand it over to our esteemed advocate, activist, and founder of Controlling Chemsex. Take it away, Ignacio.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. We have been working very, very hard to have this course ready. Apologies for the technical issues. It's the first time that we are doing this. So we hope that you understand that we are not specialists in technology, but we are getting there. And I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Ignacio, as Justin said. I'm from Spain. I've been in London since 2008. And since then, I have been working in different services, supporting people struggling with Chemsex. I have had problems with drugs in the past myself, with cocaine, G, ketamine in clubs. I came to London to learn how to help people. And then I was actively supporting as many people as I could. But in 2012, I got trapped myself in the Chemsex reality. For 3 years, I was using G day and night on a daily basis. I was using meth, tina practically every day. I was slamming at least once or twice a week. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because I don't come here only as an expert, a specialist in Chemsex support, also as someone who at some point had to get over a reality that compared to the issues I had before with with drugs, it was much, much, much worse than when I was doing maybe 3-4 grams of cocaine for a day for a long time. The reason why we shared this video was because there is actually life after Chemsex. I haven't used anything since 2015. I'm not the only one. We are supporting lots of people who are getting there. I know lots of cases we have in the Controlling Chemsex team. The majority of us, we also struggled very, very heavily with chems in the past ourselves. And the most important message here, guys, and I know that for lots of you, is something difficult to believe, is that there is life after Chemsex. And we are going to help you. As I said, we have been working for 2 years to create this course with all our passion, and it's going to be very practical. This is not just going to be about talking about very nice things, but how can I do this? It's going to be the opposite. We are here to give strategies, to give tools, to teach you how to deal with the obstacles that you are going to find. So this session, and I'm going to share my screen with you. Give me a second. This session, okay. Okay, it's getting ready. This session is about how to explore and identify goals. This is incredibly important because one of the reasons why people fail is because we don't even know what we want. Sometimes I want to stop. Sometimes I want to reduce. I promised myself on Monday I'm not going to use ever again, but on Friday I'm not so sure that that's the goal I want. And we want to start the course with this because it's very important to understand that we will have to go week by week. We are not going to make decisions about what am I going to do from today to the rest of my life. We are going to go weekly, and we are going to go step by step. And of course, we will support you. As Justin said, we have a section there. It's questions and answers. If anyone has any question, please send it to us. Justin and Jorge, they are monitoring the questions, and we will have some breaks in the course, so we will be able to explore this. So when we talk about when we are talking about Chemsex, obviously not everyone who is using chems is having problems. Sometimes someone can use once or twice a year, and it's not a problem for them. This is maybe how many of you started, that initially maybe a few years ago you were using and it wasn't a big problem. But there is a moment with many of us, we start to experience conflicts. Conflicts because at some point we see ourselves using when we don't want to use. For example, I don't want to use in the middle of the week, but I don't know how to do it, and sometimes I lose control and I do it. Or maybe I would like to use once a month, but the problem is that I don't know how to control this, and I end up using every week. Or maybe I would like to start my session on Friday and to finish on Saturday, but I start on Thursday and I finish on Sunday or on Monday. And this is always about losing control. This course is for people who they feel that at some point they have lost control, or that they can see themselves that if they carry on the way things go, they could see themselves losing control. And when we talk about Chemsex, there are two main goals. Some people, they want to carry on using. They don't want to stop. It's not about stopping. It's about just to learn how to do things more safely. When we are talking about minimizing risk, for example, is if I am going to use this week, because I want to make sure that I'm not going to get into a very messy scenario. And the other goal that people have is about people who want to stop or people who want to reduce. The second goal is basically about learning how to say no. It doesn't matter if I don't want to use ever again. So I need to learn how to say no to all these temptations that I might have on my way. And for all those who want to reduce, for example, reduce regularity, let's say that I want to use once a month. I will have to learn how to say no 3 weekends of this month. All this is, I'm just explaining how we are going to work. That's why it's so important to understand what is what we want to get. Every single one of you, you have your goals, it's affecting chems in a different way. Some people, they can be struggling severely. Some people, they can see that this is going to be a problem. It doesn't really matter because all this applies for everyone. When we talk about those who want to carry on using, and we find that controlling Chemsex, we find many people who say, I don't come here for you to tell me that I want to stop. I don't want to stop. The problem is that sometimes, and I'm actually seeing a client now whose problem is that he is having problems because every time he goes to a chill out or to a sex party or whatever, he always ends up passing out on G. And he said, can you please help me? And this is about minimizing risk. Those who want to carry on minimizing risk in Chemsex, the only way that we can help them is through harm reduction. Harm reduction is about minimizing risk. We are talking about Chemsex harm reduction. We could say, for example, to someone, if you are going to invite someone to your house, don't leave money on the table. Try to put in a safe place things that are valuable. If you know that at some point, if you get used to having only Chemsex, don't get there and try to alternate sober sex with Chemsex instead of just having only Chemsex. And this is generic information about harm reduction. Working with GHB, GBL, as I'm sure you know, this is a drug that there are lots of risks. There are people who are having overdoses. It's important to understand how to use this drug safely. Injecting practices. Some people, they are injecting drugs and they don't know how to do it. And then when they do it, sometimes instead of hitting a vein, they hit an artery or they hit a nerve, and this is very painful. There can be infections, and some people contact us and they say, I don't want to stop, but I want to learn how to inject safely because I'm having problems. We also talk about alternatives to plumbing or alternative to smoking tina, for example, meth, or how to use other drugs. If the drugs I'm using are causing me problems, it can be about sexual health, it can be about kinky sex. And harm reduction, for those who want to learn how to minimize risk, the only tool that they have is information. I want to share with you my screen to show you where you can find this information. This is the website that Controlling Chemsex has. There is a section here in tips and information, is information, and here if someone is interested, Chemsex harm reduction, and you can find all the information here, Chemsex harm reduction tips, how to reduce risk when taking G, talking about overdoses, we talk about risk of developing a physical dependency, reduction with injecting, what happens if you share the needles, which areas are more dangerous, alternatives to slamming, booty bumps, snorting. And I just wanted to share this with you because it's important that if someone is interested in carry on using, the work that we do here is not going to be about trying to convince everyone to don't do drugs. That drugs are very bad. Don't do it. We understand that everyone is free to do what they want, but we are not here to judge the goals that people have. So I would like to see if there is any question. So Jorge or Justin, I don't know if anyone is having any doubt or they want to,
Yeah, hi Ignacio. We have one question so far. It says, what do you think it is making it so difficult when I try to stay away from chems and I always fail?
Yeah, I think this is a very important question. The thing is that I want to go back to this example. Someone who, let's say that I used very heavily last weekend, and on Monday I promised myself never again. I don't want to use ever again. This is too much. It's affecting my work. It's affecting my relationships. I'm having a very severe calm down. And then I go and I promise myself not to use again. But on Monday I survive. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I try to stay motivated, but maybe on Friday, and I don't want to use, but maybe I haven't prepared any strategy. And maybe on Friday, I receive a message from someone on WhatsApp, someone who I met in the past who is telling me, hey, what are you up to? And I don't know how to control that. I don't know how to say no. Or maybe I start to have cravings and I don't know how to deal with that. So a big problem is that when we don't prepare a strategy and we just go with our good intentions, the good intentions that we have on Monday, and we start to address and to face the first obstacles that we find on our way, unless we are ready to address those obstacles, we are going to be very vulnerable. And this has a big problem because if I'm promising myself all the time, I'm not going to do this ever again. And every time I promise myself, I see myself doing this the week after or 2 weeks later, what I'm going to get is I'm going to fail. There is no way out. It's impossible. I'm always failing. And we need to be very practical. That is why I'm very happy that you are here, because the idea of this course is helping you to answer all these questions. And I will explain more now. So thank you for that question. I don't know, Jorge, if there is any other question.
No other questions right now.
Fantastic. So I'm going to carry on then with the presentation. So we talk about those who want to carry on, but let's talk about those who want to stop and they want to reduce. We always, when we work with clients, we always recommend them not to set a goal from today to the rest of their lives. I always tell them the same. I say, if your goal is not to use ever again, and you go well for 1 month, for 2 months, and then at some point, the second month, you go and you use, what people normally feel is, oh my God, I fucked it up. I was going so well. I'm not going to be able to get over this. And then their confidence, it goes down. How we are going to do this? We are going to go, when it's about abstinence or reduction, we're going to go week by week. As I said before, this is about learning how to say no. And it really works the same for someone who wants to stop or for reducing. So let's have a look at that. When we want to stop or reduce, the most important thing is we need to prepare a strategy. It's not about, okay, it's Monday, let's see, fingers crossed this time I will be successful. This is what I was mentioning before. This is a big problem for lots of people because they try and they don't have any strategy. They start to find obstacles and they start to struggle with them. So when we talk about abstinence or reduction, it's important to take into account, first of all, short term. Short term is, if my goal is not to use between today and next week, how am I going to make sure that I'm not going to use between today and next week? And also long term, which is someone who wants to stop for longer, for 1 month, for 2 months, for 3 months, or for 6 months. Even with that, it's important to understand that we always encourage people to go. Let's go week by week. Let's go short term. Why? Because if your goal is not to use for 1 week and you don't use for that week, what you're going to feel on Monday, if it's during the weekend, is you're going to feel very proud of yourself. This is going to give you some sense of accountability. And this is going to make you feel that you are starting to take control back. And that is going to give you confidence to go for the next goal. If you noticed before, we were talking about someone who had been away from Chems for 2-3 months. And when he used, he felt horrible and his world collapsed. That is why it's so important to go start slowly. We don't need to be ambitious. So if my goal is not to use for short-term goal, my goal is not to use for 1 week, and I want to prepare a strategy. The first thing I have to do, and this is the first time to do when we set any strategy for anything. The first of all is to understand what obstacles I'm going to find on my way. If I don't want to use drugs between today and next week, what could make me use drugs? The other thing that is important to understand when I'm preparing a strategy is what I have that can help me, what are my resources. So on one hand, it's not about Monday, I'm not going to use ever again, is I don't want to use this weekend. So what are the obstacles I'm going to find? The first one is cravings. And when we talk about cravings, in Chemsex, we are talking about cravings for drugs, cravings for sex, cravings for intimacy, cravings for excitement, cravings for escapism, cravings for feeling good about myself because I feel horrible. And if I know that between today and next week, I'm going to have cravings, unless I get ready with a strategy to deal with that, if they come and I'm not ready, it wouldn't be surprising if I fail. The other reason why someone could use drugs between today and next week is because something unexpected happens. Let's say that my plan is not to use between today and next week. It's Friday. I have made plans with my friend for dinner, but then my friend canceled last minute and I don't know, my God, what am I going to do now? But also at the same time, I received a message from someone on WhatsApp, someone who I met in the past and who's contacted me to say, hey, what are you up to? And then if my friend wouldn't have canceled, if that person wouldn't have messaged me, maybe things would have been easier. But when I see myself having to address these situations that I wasn't expecting, we need to identify these situations because they could happen. I'm sure that lots of you have seen yourselves in a situation where you didn't want to use, not this weekend I'm not using, and then suddenly you get a message from someone on WhatsApp, or maybe you go out with friends just to have a drink and you get drunk and you didn't want to get drunk. So these are the two obstacles that we are going to find on our way. Regarding the resources that we have when we prepare the strategy, we have always to understand what is going to help me. One of them is the resources that we have, who I can call, my friends, my hobbies, what can I do, what kind of things help me to relax if I am feeling stressed, what kind of things I can do when I have free time. And also a very good way to get ready for the weekend is planning ahead. Planning ahead is important but planning ahead, we need to plan properly. Sometimes I could say, okay, I see my client on Monday, say, how was it? And I say, well, you know what? I have planned meeting my friend for dinner on Friday, and we had a very lovely time on Friday on the dinner, and then I come back and I couldn't sleep. And I was 1 and I was 2, and I started to think that everyone was having fun but me. And then I went on Grindr, and I just go and I just went and I met someone. This is important because planning is not just about I'm going to go to the cinema on Friday. Planning is also what am I going to do if when I come back I cannot sleep? What am I going to do if my friend is canceling the dinner that we have and suddenly I see myself with no plan? You know, I give you an example. It's interesting. Some people say, and I'm sure you're going to understand me. Some people say, I'm going to watch Netflix, and then you go. We know how Netflix works. You don't really know what you would like to watch, so you have lots of windows, lots of things, and then you start watching something, and you think 10 minutes later, this is boring, I don't even know what this is. No, I'm going to try to watch something else. And then I tried to watch something else. I wasn't sure. I didn't even know what that was. And then 20 minutes later, I put the TV off and I said, I don't want to watch Netflix. It's not the same when we talk about planning. If I made a research and I start to create a list of things and movies that I would absolutely love to watch. So if at some point I need to go and I need to watch Netflix, I won't see myself in a scenario where I won't be able to watch I don't know what. So this is very important because we have to understand, if I don't want to use between today and next week, what could make me use my cravings. We will teach you in this course how to manage cravings. It could be because something unexpected happens that triggers my need of use. We will help you in this course to identify these triggers, to understand that there are situations that if they happen, and sometimes we can't prevent them from happening, what are we going to do if they happen? But also, we are going to help you to make this toolbox full of things. We need to maybe to start to identify. I know people, for example, who are into video games, they go and they buy they do a research, they buy a video game that they love, and they say, I'm going to have this video game ready for the day when I have very, very strong cravings, for example. This is important. This is for short term. What happens when this is not really sustainable? If I focus on this part of short term, for example, I don't want to use between today and next week, and it's easy for me to learn how to manage cravings. It's easy. I mean, it's not going to be easy. There will be moments, and maybe some of you, they're going to struggle a lot with it, and some others, it could be easier for them. They have more resources or whatever. But when we talk about Chemsex, if we focus only on short term, this is not going to be sustainable. When we talk about long term, and when I say long term is, for example, if I'm using once a month, if I want to use once a month, and I'm using weekly, and my goal is not to use for 3 weeks. This is important because this is I will need to check what am I going to do with the rest of the month. And I want to tell you a little bit what was my problem when I stopped doing chems. I tried many times. I was focusing cravings and triggers, and I tried and I failed, and I was desperate because I was thinking, what am I going to do with this? And I was incredibly frustrated and disappointed. I really, really had problems with. But I understood that when I stopped, I knew that when I stopped, I said, how do my life would look like? How would my life could look like if I stop? And I say, if I stop, I will be feeling completely isolated because the only people I have been interacting with are people who are using chems, and I only see them once. And I don't know what to do with my free time. And I remember that this happened to me. And I remember that I didn't know what to do with my free time. I didn't have any way to experience any excitement with my chems. My self-esteem was below zero. I have promised myself so many times never again, and I did it. I was letting people down. I was hurting people who I loved. The people who cared about me was very concerned. My flatmate, for example, she saw me passing out on G, and she was desperate. She didn't really know what to do, and I was feeling the most horrible person in the world. And these drugs made me feel confident and made me forget about these things. Every time that I tried, I was thinking everyone is having fun but me. Grindr is there. Sex is so available. If I go there, I won't be missing. Maybe this night is going to be special. And I didn't know how to have any sober sex, any intimacy, nothing. And I have well, some people, I didn't have problem with this, but some people. So if I stop and my sober life is going to be about loneliness, isolation, not knowing how to experience and enjoy, problems with my emotions. I don't know how to do with when I feel sad, when I feel angry, when I feel upset, when I feel frustrated. And I don't know how to deal with that because I have been dealing with all that by using chems for a long, long time. And I have problems with sober sex and intimacy. I understood, I say, if I want to make this sustainable, I really, really, really need to make changes. I really need to change my life. My life, the way it is, my life right now, and this is happening to me when I see my clients and they tell me I couldn't control myself and I use, and I have to tell, and I said to them, I completely understand that you use. Of course you use, you have been 2-3 weeks, you have been on your own at home, you haven't met anyone, you are just trying to watch Netflix, and then at some point you're going to have this idea of, well, you know what, a little bit, it doesn't need to be crazy. And then when they come and say, it's understandable, there are reasons why we do chems. We do chems not just necessarily for sex. We do chems for loneliness. We do chems because we don't know what to do when we have free time and we do chems because we feel so bad about ourselves. So this is very important because we will also help with that. As I said, it's going to be very practical. What I'm doing now is to put on the table how the situation is, and I'm going to explain how we are going to work. But this is important because if I want to make this sustainable, I remember, for example, when I stopped, I remember that I joined a group of fencing, and I did a course of called Action for Happiness, an 8-week course about learning about happiness because I was desperate and I was going to lots of meetup things, to meet people and to make friends. And it was a priority to say, if I really, really, really want to get over this and my life is the way it is because my life without drugs is ugly. And when I have cravings, I think that it's so ugly that with chems is not going to be that ugly. So it's important to understand this process of making changes in order to make this sustainable. So again, we have space for questions. I don't know, Jorge.
Yeah, we have a couple questions. One question comes from Miguel. He asks, one therapist tell me that this condition is something for life, that I have to take control the rest of my life. My goal is complete sobriety. The drugs and the sex has spiraled out of control. In your professional opinion, is there a time that is more malleable or more changeable?
Yeah, well, 100%. I'm the living proof that this is like that. I haven't used anything since 2015. I am 100% sure that I'm not going to use chems ever again for 2 reasons. Why? Because once you get over the period of cravings, you don't have cravings anymore. I don't have cravings anymore. I haven't had cravings for years. And also regarding triggers, because I understand that there is one thing that if I see myself in one scenario, I would use. If I see myself in a scenario where there are drugs, I know I won't be able to say no. So my work is precisely about making sure that everywhere I go, there are no drugs around. I'm not talking only about myself. I'm talking about myself, my team. I'm talking about many people who we have supported, and they send an email years later and say, hey, just for you to know, or I want to become a volunteer. And I'm not really happy with the idea of you have to accept the fact that you will be always an addict. I don't see myself as an addict, even though I have been a very heavy drug user. I have seen myself as an addict in the past, but now I don't. So I want to send this message, and this is again the reason why David Fawcett wanted to share these two testimonials, because there is life after chemsex, and the problem is that when we are only interacting with people who are using chems as well, some of them are very messy. Some of them they went to rehabs, and then they tell you it's very normal to end up thinking there's impossible. I got trapped, and I'm going to have to deal with this for the rest of my life. And when I say 100%, I cannot say louder because,
Mhm.
but I am absolutely sure about this. And again, it's not just for my personal experience, it's my team, the people who we support, many people who are not using chems anymore, and they say, I won't ever use chems. And this is not that we are superheroes. As I said before, I tried many times, I tried everything, it was always failing. And it's not that I am a superhero and you guys, you are a disaster and you are not like me. It's not like that.
I appreciate that, Ignacio. That's encouraging. There's another question from Kevin that I'll get to in a moment. There are also a few other questions that Justin answered. So, if other participants want to take a look at how to deal with loneliness and whether the presentation is going to be shared, you've got some answers there. Ignacio, the last question we have to answer right now is from Kevin, and Kevin asks, over the past 5 years, I've almost lost everything I hold dear to me, yet I still want to continue using chems, but on a reduced level. I know that in my heart, I need to stop or I'll have nothing left. What needs to happen to make me wake up from this reality, or to this reality?
Yeah, thank you for this. This is important. Hitting rock bottom is not rock bottom is not the same for everyone. Some people, they need to see themselves homeless. Some people, they need to see themselves in a situation where they in a hospital waking up and they say you have been in a coma 4 days, and then is when they get. So we always have more to lose. And what you say here about I want to continue using chems but on a reduced level, I'm sure that you have tried that before. What is reducing for you? It's about reducing the regularity. It's about reducing the amount of drugs that you are going to take. When we talk about Chemsex, one of the things that happen is that it's very, very easy to lose control. Maybe one session is easy and nothing bad happens, but maybe the session after everything is a mess and it's a disaster. And maybe this week I go to a club and I take some methadone, and then I go back home and I can sleep with no problem. But maybe the week after I go to the club feeling very confident, thinking I did it last week. Why not? I don't have any problem. And then it's when I end up in a chill out, in another chill out, and I don't go to work on Monday. So it's important to understand the reducing is, and I understand that it's not always easy to make the decision of stopping forever. That is why we are not telling people you need to stop. People, they need to get to that decision themselves. And I'm not going to be the one who is going to tell someone, no, you need to stop. I have been working recently with someone who every session he was talking about how disaster his last weekend was. And I said to him, I'm very happy to talk about that, but we offer a limited number of sessions. And if you want to make this sustainable, we need to start talking about making changes. So I hope that this answered the question.
I think so, Ignacio. And why don't we stop there? We've got a couple more questions, but we can get to those in the next round.
Okay, so thank you for this. Okay. So we're going to carry on then with I close the presentation, sorry for this. As we say, we have technical issues and we hope. So what we are going to do during the course? We are going to go, as you know, it's an 8-week course. It's going to be every day, every Saturday at the same time. And today, as you know, we are talking about how to explore and identify goals, short-term goals, long-term goals. What are the obstacles? What are the so? We are going to. The week number 2 is about the first obstacle that we are going to find. Cravings. As I said, cravings for drugs, cravings for sex, cravings for intimacy, cravings for everything. The session next week is going to be very, very powerful. We are going to give you strategies that probably you have never heard before. Please bring paper and bring a pen because we have lots of work to do. I'm sure that you are going to find it very, very, very interesting, and it's going to be beyond this idea of try to call a friend, maybe it's 4 in the morning, or try to go for a walk, maybe maybe it's raining, or maybe you don't want to go for a walk because you feel paranoid at home. So it's a reality, guys. Cravings are going to come. Maybe the first week after using is not, because we still remember what happened. But the second week or the third, they are going to come. We need to get ready, and that is why we are going to teach you what to do when they come. Session is on the 30th of March, same time. Week number 3 is the second obstacle, triggers, how to identify and avoid chemsex triggers. This is going to be also a very, very opening session, because it's true that we can use the strategy of fingers crossed. Hopefully no one is going to send me a message on WhatsApp saying that what am I up to? But the question is that life is the way it is, and things are going to happen, and maybe you have an argument with your partner, and then you say, okay, so you are telling me all this crap now, and you don't see this, so fuck off, I'm going to go and use. We need to identify these triggers, and we will work on this the week 3rd. It's on the 6th of April, and then week 4 is very important, how to improve self-esteem after chemsex. As I said before, one of the first things that is affected when we get into the chemsex world and we see ourselves losing control is our self-esteem. It's very normal to end up seeing ourselves as junkies. If people knew what I'm doing, I'm always hiding everything from my friends. I'm always lying. I'm always with excuses. I look at the mirror and I don't recognize the person who is in front of me. I lose so much weight, and I end up having sex with lots of people who I don't like. So why is so important to work on self-esteem? First of all, because when we talk about the process of making changes, there will be moments when it will be important to leave the comfort zone. The comfort zone, just in case someone is not familiar, is when we are in a situation that we don't feel we are scared, because my comfort zone is the space, the area in my life where I don't take risks, but nothing bad happens. For example, I don't want to be rejected. If I go to a bar, I don't go to the bar, I stay at home, and no one is going to reject me. It's true, but nothing is going to happen. You won't meet new people, for example. So it's very important to understand that when we leave the comfort zone, or someone who doesn't know how to have sober sex, obviously that person, there will be one day when he's naked for the first time with someone else. And it's not going to be easy if we see ourselves as junkies and everything. If this guy knew, oh, I'm going to be a disaster, I'm not going to perform. So we are going to have a special focus on self-esteem. We will talk about this on the 13th of April, but we are going to send you homework. We have homework for every week, and the homework they are going to be about self-esteem. You have 1 week. My advice is, if you really want to engage with this, have a look at that, because there is something positive on self-esteem, and it's that if we work on that, we can improve it a lot. It's not that you have bad self-esteem and you need to live the rest of your life hating yourself. And the first thing we have to do, the first exercise, is precisely about how do we see ourselves. We have here this exercise that we will tell you now in a minute where you can find this, and it's about how do you see yourself in bullet points. How do you see yourself? How will you describe yourself as the child you were? As a child, I was this, I was this, I was this, I was that. As the teenager, younger person you were. When I was young, I was this, I was this, I was that. Your personality, as a relative, as a friend, at work, studies. This is the first step. If we are going to work on self-esteem, the first thing we need to do is to understand how is the relationship that we have with ourselves, and how do we see ourselves in different areas in our lives. We will tell you later where you can find this exercise. This exercise is in the website. We will tell you later where they are. But it's very important to understand that maybe someone here that I don't have any problem with self-esteem. Don't do the exercise. We are not going to ask people, this is not the school. We are just, as we said, offering tools. It's up to you to take them or not. So this is going to be week 4. Week 5 is how to reconnect with joy without involving chems. I mentioned before when I stopped, I didn't know what to do with my free time, my joy. At least in theory, my joy for years had come from chems. And when I stopped chems, I thought, what am I going to do if I don't use for 2-3 weeks, I end up thinking that my life is boring. And that can push me to use. So we will help to reconnect with joy without involving chems. Again, this is going to be practical. This is not going to be about, guys, go home and try to think about how you can make your life more enjoyable. We are going to help you all the way from the beginning. Some people who say, I don't even know how to start. This is going to be for you. We have this, how to reconnect with joy, how to reconnect with the community. Loneliness, isolation is a big for many people. In fact, I think 99% of the people who we support, they report problems with loneliness in one way or another. Sometimes that's the reason why they started using chems, or is the biggest obstacle, or is the biggest consequence because I stopped meeting my friends and now I'm all on my own. So we will explore this in week number 5, which will be on the 20th of April. We will go in week number 6, how to manage chemsex relapses or lapses. We will explain what's the difference, but sometimes it's true that things happen. We cannot be naive. There will be moments where maybe someone can make the decision of using, but it's very important to use that information that we can get from that in a very constructive way. I'm sure you have seen yourself having maybe going well for a while, then you use, and then you feel horrible. This is a disaster. I hate myself. And that feeling like that is understandable, but feeling like that is not preventing future chemsex episodes. Otherwise, you would have never done this before. So it's very important to understand how to deal with relapses and lapses and how to get something positive from there. This session is going to be very powerful. Some people think there is no way, there's nothing positive on this. It's true, it's painful, it's frustrating. But what happened to do last Friday that pushed you to use, unless we learn, it can happen again in 2 Fridays' time. And it's very important to address this constructively. It will be on the 27th of April. Week number 7, we have how to reconnect with sober sex. Obviously, not everyone here or the participants are experiencing problems with that, but some of you might have, and that session is about reconnecting with sober sex. People get terrified. It's scary, I understand, but good news, unless there are psychosexual issues involved. For example, someone who is using chems, let's say that I suffer from premature ejaculation. I suffer from premature ejaculation. My sex life has been always embarrassing. Every time I had sex with someone, it was a disaster. And then one day I find something on my way called Tina, meth. And when I do Tina, I don't come after 2 minutes. And I think this is wonderful. What happened after a while? Maybe my life, I have problems at work. I lose friends. I have financial problems. And at some point I see myself, I need to stop or to take control back. If that person doesn't address this premature ejaculation problem, every time that he feels horny, the idea of having sober sex is going to be impossible. But not everyone is having psychosexual issues. Some people, they had a very enjoyable sex life before chemsex, and going back and reconnect with that is actually much easier than what people think. It's important to prepare a strategy. We will help you how to do it. We will give you tools, and obviously is what we say long term. If the idea is to be able to enjoy your life without drugs, but you don't know how to have sober sex, it's very important to learn how to have and enjoy sober sex. It's going to be a very interesting session. You will see, and it will be on the 4th of May. And finally, the last session is going to be about how to live a balanced life. This is very important because we will find that some people, they have been able to stay away from chems for maybe 6-7 months. and then at some point they see themselves going back to the same habits. We need to understand why this is happening, because there is a reason, and again, we are going to help you with all this. So this is, again, a little break for questions that, Jorge, I don't know if you can help.
Yeah, we've got a few questions. The first one comes from David, who's asking, do you think that 12-step messaging, stay clean no matter what, and the importance on continuous clean time is a negative factor in early recovery?
Well, we work in a very different way than 12 steps. 12 steps is amazing for lots of people, but not everyone is into 12 steps. It's true that they have this idea, this philosophy that every day at a time, and they count every day when they haven't been using. For some people, that is very good. For some others, it can be very frustrating because they say, okay, 65 days and I relapse, I need to start again. So some people find that very, very manageable. Some people find that complicated. As we say, I don't remember the last day when I used myself. I think it was December 2015, but maybe it wasn't December, maybe it was October. No, I think it was close to Christmas. And I think it's important not to understand that. It's true that every day at a time, but the idea of I have to stay clean over everything else is true. But what kind of life do you have if it's about that? The approach that we have is different. We need to make changes. We need to make your life beautiful. We need to make your life without drugs involved more beautiful than what you think that your life with Chemsex. Otherwise, you will be missing things. You will be having cravings. And Jorge, I think you also want to say something.
Yeah, that's a good pickup on which touches on the next question. The person, John B, asks, I feel like I've made a genuine connections through the scene. I think he means through being in the drug scene or Chemsex scene, and without cutting ties totally, how can I hope to navigate these relationships into a space where drugs do not coexist?
Yeah. Okay, well, it's true. Sometimes when we meet people and we connect with them, and it's true, sometimes it's not real, and then you believe that you connect very well with someone who, and then you meet one day without drugs and you think that we have nothing in common. What could I see in this guy? But it's also true that there are people who are using chems always with the same people. And they have good connections. They share, they have been talking about their lives. They know about their lives. And it's true that it can be a problem. I'm working right now with someone who is a lovely, lovely guy who is in that situation. He's always using with the same people, and he's very isolated. And he said to me, the problem is that if I stop using chems, I won't see them, and they are the only people I have. And I really like them. They are very, very nice people. And I asked him, okay, no one is telling you you need to stop being in touch with them. But the question is how realistic is to think that you can rely on these people if your goal is not to use for 1 month, for example. What are you going to do the rest of the month when you don't use? So cutting ties is complicated. Sometimes people find this easier. Some people, they just block everyone and they change their phone numbers. I don't want to know about anyone else. Some people, they say, I'm going to block everyone apart from 3 numbers. And some people say, I can block these 3 people. And maybe 2-3 months later, they change their mind and say, well, I realized that I can't carry on being friends with them, but do you have a journey? This is a journey. Try to, if you say, well, I'm going to try not to cut the ties, try not to cut the ties, see how it goes. If it's helping you to achieve the goal that we are talking about, wonderful. If it's not, you will have to see yourself in a situation where you will have to reconsider this question,
Yeah, and just one more question, Ignacio. This is from an anonymous attendee who asks, I go through money problems frequently. It happens that when I go make some money, I immediately buy meth. Meth helps me lighten my hunger, so I caught the idea that if I run out of money, meth will help me hold on until I have money again. Lately, I don't use to fuck, but to work. I'm sure that having money would make it easier to stay abstinent.
Okay. You know when you are going to get paid. You know that you're going to get paid on Friday, let's say on this Friday. You know that when you get paid, your body, your brain, your everything is going to tell you, go and buy. And this is important because if you can identify something that is going to be a trigger, we will talk about this in week 3. The most important thing is I need to understand my triggers. And I need to understand what is going to happen that is going to push me to use. If that is a good idea for you and say, no, I'm getting paid next week on Friday, and I want to use, it's your decision. It's your decision and it's up to you. But if you don't want to use, then what are you going to do about that? If you know that this is what is going to happen. And what you say about don't use this to fact, but to work, this is also a very common thing. Many people who are using daily, obviously you are not having sex daily all the time, 24/7. Many people are using chems sometimes to get some energy when they feel that they feel down, or to manage their emotions, or to work because they feel that they are more productive. If you are happy with that, we always say this, if you are happy with that and this is not creating any conflict, it's okay, because you are the one who has to decide if this is a problem for you. But if this is a problem for you, at some point you will have to discuss, you will have to say what is what I want to do about this. How sustainable is that I can stay using meth without to work? Because you only have 2 options. One is I can carry on like this using meth to work. The other option is I can learn how to work without meth. And this is we are talking about, this is when we talk about making changes. And also is I want to reduce, and instead of using all day long, maybe a little bit in the morning. But this is something that sometimes for some people could work, and for some people is not going to work. Okay, so this is I don't know if all these questions, all these answer your questions. If not, happy to talk about that. Please, you have the email info@globalchemsextoolbox.com. Please feel free to send us questions there, because I obviously understand that we don't have the time to explore all this.
Great. Thanks, Ignacio.
I think we go now through Matthew Mitchell.
Excellent. Yes, please give me screen sharing rights, and I'll share a little info about Matthew. So this is one of many video testimonials that we'll be sharing within this program. Matthew Mitchum is an Olympian. There's a real stigma that we need to reduce around people who are using substances, people who are struggling with substance use disorders. People having chemsex, they're not lost, they're not junkies, they're not damaged for life. You know, we hear from a lot of successful people who are struggling with chemsex, and we wanted to share a testimonial from one of our partner organizations, Controlling Chemsex, which Ignacio has founded, and Matthew is their ambassador. Matthew Mitchum's an Australian retired diver. He was the 2008 Olympic champion in the 10-meter platform. He's actually the second highest single dive score in Olympic history. This made him the first openly gay athlete to win an Olympic gold medal. We love working with Matthew. He represents the people that we hear from all around the world, all kinds of people who need help getting control back in their lives. We're so thankful to Matthew for joining our mission and sharing his story. This will be a 15-minute video that we'll play now. We're going to regroup after this video plays, and Ignacio is going to walk us through the 4th and final part of our workshop series. So I will be sharing Matthew's story here.
Just one thing, Justin, what I was going to say, if you can tell them where to download the, but let's go through the video. Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Matthew Mitchum. I am former diver, the first openly gay Olympic gold medalist, and a recovering drug addict. I started using drugs as a teenager. It started, with alcohol, marijuana. When I turned 18, it turned into party drugs. And then I met someone who, was using crystal meth. We became boyfriends. And I stopped doing sport. I took a break from sport for a year, and my use got pretty bad. But then I started diving again before the Beijing Olympics and went cold turkey off everything, and did very well in Beijing, won a gold medal. And then afterwards, I started partying again. But I started my use, I don't know, I guess because of who I was in the public eye, all my use then became secret, like not even with my boyfriend. And that's when it really got out of control. So it was just occasionally at first, and then I guess it progressed to, I'd do 5 days on, 5 days off, and then sometimes I wouldn't even do 5 days off. And yeah, it got really out of hand. It got, to a point of absolute desperation, because most of the time I was promising that I wouldn't use again. Every single time I detoxed, I promised myself with every single cell in my body that I would not use again. And every single time I just could not keep that promise. My first breaking point was probably when the consequences looked like they were becoming very, very real. And I was at a point of desperation that I knew that I couldn't stop by myself for a very long time. I'd known that for quite a while. But it was when other people were starting to find out about it. I couldn't hide it from my partner. It was impacting my life, and I couldn't, do my job. I couldn't do my sport. That's when it was, I guess that's where the point that I needed to make a change came, because I didn't want drugs to take away my entire life. When I did get to the point that I realized that I needed to do something, I went to rehab. And actually that was kind of a last resort for me, because I did try and stop by myself for at least 6 months. And when I realized that I just couldn't do it by myself, I went to rehab. And that was a game changer for me, because my problems weren't just with drugs. My problems had a lot to do with self-esteem, with validation, with depression and anxiety. So I had a lot of underlying reasons for why I was using drugs. And so, rehab for me was a game changer. I found it incredibly helpful. That was really just step one, though. There had to be a lot of maintenance after that. I had to make my recovery part of my lifestyle. And so I did a lot of sort of 12-step meetings and a lot of psychology as well. And I think that's the only reason I was ever able to get any recoveries, because I had made recovery a part of my life, a part of my daily life. I'm very lucky that I really did throw myself into recovery with everything that I had, because I knew that this was a life or death thing for me. I had learnt a lot of tools to, like urge surfing, I guess, was one where you just kind of ride the wave and see it for what it is. Like, it's just a craving, and it will peak and you'll reach your crest, and then the urge will go away and dissipate. And it's just about, resisting that compulsion to act on every single urge like that. When I was having big feelings, figuring out what was within my control to change and what was not within my control that I just had to accept. And so every time I had a feeling, literally, I would just kind of run through it like, can I change this feeling or not? And, that was a big thing for me. But yeah, it was very all-consuming at the beginning. And I guess that's what it needed to be, because my addiction was all-consuming. And so my recovery from drugs had to be all-consuming. Cravings in the beginning were nuts, like super, super intense. Everything was a trigger, and any feeling was a trigger. I guess all of my thinking patterns as well were all kind of geared towards using drugs as a solution, and so it was a lot of retraining my brain in the beginning, because all of those thinking patterns were all automatic. You know, it was always my first thought was always the solution is drugs. And I had to catch that and go, let's kind of redirect this thought. Or, you know, is drugs really the best solution for this? Or using drugs is or sex are very powerful ways to change your feelings. But they're also very crude tools because they have a lot of consequences. And so part of my recovery was sort of learning more effective ways to change my feelings or to cope with my feelings that don't come with all of the consequences that drugs and or sex come with. And so that really helps with the thinking pattern of like, you know, drugs being a solution to change how I feel. Actually, I don't need all of those consequences. Let's try this solution instead. And the more you practice that, the more automatic it becomes. And eventually over time, that first thought stops becoming going to drugs, especially if you really focus on attaching all of the consequences to drugs. And I think that was the game changer for me in the beginning, was having a realistic look at you know, how effective really drugs and sex are as a solution to my problems. Because when you attach all of those consequences to it, then you can't help but think of drugs as consequences rather than solutions. Yeah, and I think that's how the automatic sort of thing started to drift more towards the healthier solutions for me. Loneliness and isolation provided a wonderful environment for my addiction to thrive in, because I craved connection, and also being isolated meant that there were no barriers or obstacles in the way of me actually using drugs. You know, I had a very, very small life. I didn't realize how much loneliness and isolation had contributed to my addiction until I stopped using, you know, and threw myself into, you know, recovery communities. And they are communities, and there are lots of connections there. And it was the connection that I found to be wonderfully powerful and therapeutic and esteeming, and, you know, provided wonderful distractions and made me feel good about myself. Like, you know, having all of these friendships and relationships, like healthy relationships with people that occupied my time, that took my mind off using. I'm a huge, huge advocate of, you know, the saying that connection is the opposite to addiction. I've had friends who have died because they never managed to get sex and drugs unlinked. And so when they were trying to get sober, they were missing sex too much, and it ended up leading back to drugs again. So that's why I'm so passionate, really, about you know, about controlling Chemsex and working with them and getting the message out there, because I just hear the stories over and over and over and over again about guys who are too scared to have sex because they've never had sex sober, or it's too much of a trigger for them. When it comes to the fear, I always say, I mean, I always talk about how wonderful and beautiful I find sober sex. You know, sometimes I'm almost kind of envious of people who've never had sober sex, because it's almost as if they'd be experiencing it for the first time. It's a beautiful thing, being present in the moment and, you know, and feeling all of those sensations. And I always say to focus on the process of it, you know, rather than, because I know for me, I can become a bit too goal oriented and just try and focus on the outcome, which means I'm not actually enjoying the process, which makes the outcome harder to actually get to. So I try and remove any pressure to reach a finish at all for me, and just make a commitment to myself to just enjoy the process, whatever the process is, however far it goes, to just enjoy every moment, every sensation, or just experience it, even if you don't enjoy it, and kind of and be present enough to go, okay, that's not for me, but this is. And that itself is what sober sex is for me. And that's what I find really, really enjoyable. Oh, it's wonderful. Minimization and self-will did not work for me. I needed like a big circuit breaker, basically. And so that big circuit breaker for me was going to rehab, and that got me some momentum and a lot of education. So there was a lot of psychology work in there, which was a lot of sort of retraining the mind, finding sort of alternative solutions, like mentally, instead of, you know, kind of reaching for drugs. And also some lifestyle sort of training. You know, I joined a recovery community, so I was doing meetings every day, which was extremely helpful for me, and that again was part of the retraining of the mind. A huge fear that I had before getting sober was that life would be boring. When I got sober and had a real look at my addiction and everything I was doing in addiction, and was very realistic about how much joy I was actually having and how much fun I was actually having, it kind of made me realize that I was pretty miserable most of the time. I have experienced genuine joy, genuine pleasure, genuine fun, genuine happiness, like probably because I was focusing on it, you know, because I was actually kind of cleaving away, you know, all of these unhealthy things that were contributing to my addiction, and just kind of starting from a much healthier baseline. And then when you add on top all of those really healthy behaviors, when you add on top, you know, mental wellness and, you know, and for me, like meditation and mindfulness, and then adding on, you know, connection. I mean, connection with people is where you experience real joy. And I never had meaningful, genuine connections that had to do with having fun or actual joy. I have experienced genuine joy and genuine happiness. And yes, there have been some, you know, life is hard sometimes. Like you do have to live life on life's terms. Things will happen. People will die. You will lose friends. You will have falling outs. You will fight. But if you use, those things are still going to exist. That pain's still going to exist. But then you also have the consequences of what you've done, like of your using. So if you just get through that stuff, then you put yourself in a much better position to experience happiness and joy again much, much sooner than if you return to drugs. After the gold medal and after becoming #1 in the world and not really filling that hole that I thought it would, I realized that, and that, you know, and my addiction was just getting worse and worse and worse after that. Yeah, I realized that, well, I guess for me, that's where rehab was instrumental in changing everything, because that's where I learned that I do have such low self-esteem, or that I don't have any self-esteem. All my esteem comes from other sources, you know, other people. And so I learned how to actually generate self-esteem. And so for me, that I've learned the easiest way for me to generate self-esteem is to be of service to others, to help others without expecting anything in return. Like that's the golden ticket. But even, you know, just any act of service to anybody else, helping anybody else, sharing my story, which in my mind helps other people, all of that, it makes me feel better about myself, makes me feel like a good person and like I'm doing good work and making a positive contribution to the world. I'm much happier being sober. I enjoy sex more sober, and my life is better than it's ever been.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. What a wonderful story. So happy he could share that with us. I just want to show everyone again where on the website you can find all of the written exercises that Ignacio is referencing. So again, if you go to globalchemsextoolbox.com, on the homepage, you can click Chemsex course, which I'm hovering over right now. Once you get there, you'll see there is a detailed list of the entire course program, 1 through 8. Once you click on week 1, where we are, you'll see all of the details of today's session. You'll eventually see a recorded video of this session that we're talking right now live. But under download exercises, These are the two documents that Ignacio will be referencing. And I also just want to point out one more homework assignment, if you will, the TED Talk. This is from Johan Hari, a British Swiss writer and journalist. He wrote for The Independent and the Huffington Post. He gives a great TED Talk about what really causes addiction and how we can overcome it. His beliefs are our beliefs, that's shared by our whole team, and we follow this approach that he speaks about in his 14-minute TED Talk. If you all can watch that after our presentation today, that'd be great. I'm gonna stop sharing screen now and hand it back to Ignacio.
Thank you, Justin. I think it's fantastic to hear Matthew's story, to say that it's not just about junkie people who are fucked up. They are very successful people who they also struggle with this, and what people deserve is compassion and empathy, and that's why we are doing this. When we talk about long-term, and I talk about loneliness, and I talk about boredom, etc. There is one exercise that Justin was talking about. I'm going to share the screen, and I'm going to show you. And it's an exercise for you to explore what you could be missing if you stop doing chems. Let me go for it. Yeah, this exercise is to identify what we have been talking. We are going to talk about self-sex, we are going to talk about loneliness, we are going to talk about, and it would be good if as homework you also do this exercise, which is also on the website, and is to start to explore the scale. There are different statements here to explore between 1, totally disagree, to 7, totally agree. How do you think, how likely is that after 2, 3, 4 months, you will be thinking that life without using chems is boring? So you say, well, I disagree, totally disagree, I disagree slightly, or I totally agree. You can answer here. You won't have to share this answer, so this is for you. This is going to cover all the things that can involve what I'm going to find if I stop and I want to make this sustainable. It's going to talk about self-sex. It's going to talk about confidence. They give me the confidence that I naturally lack. They allow me to socialize and to meet other guys. My use, I like getting validation when I'm using them with other people. And this is important because, as you can see in the program, there are going to be sessions that maybe someone says, I don't really need to go to week 7 because week 7 is about sober sex and I don't have any problem with sober sex. That's perfectly fine. No one is expecting you to join every session. This is for you, for whatever you think you need. And this way to start to understand what you might need is in this exercise, okay? Also, I wanted to just to finish, I wanted to ask a few questions that I think is important to understand, that in terms of short term, these are questions that it could be amazing if we learn how to ask ourselves between today and next week. And the first question is, between today and next week, for example, how likely is that I'm not going to use chems between today and next week? I would like you to think about this for a few seconds. You know how your Saturday is tonight, Sundays, you know how your Mondays are. You know how next Friday is going to be. So how likely is, if you don't want to use chems, how likely is that you're not going to do it? If you use, when that would be? I'm sure some people who say, I don't use during the week, so if I use, it would be Friday. It would be Friday, I'm going to be vulnerable the rest of the week. Or maybe you could say, no, my problem is going to be Wednesday, because on Wednesday I have a very important meeting, a deadline, or I'm going to get paid, as we discussed before. If you use, when that would be. Third question that is very important is, if you use, why that would be. And answering this is important. It's going to be because I'm going to get excited, because I'm going to get paid, and it's going to be because on Friday I don't have any plan, and when I come back home from work and I see myself at in the house, I always end up going on Grindr, and I'm going to be vulnerable then. It's very important to identify all this, and we will work on these questions every week, but it's very important that we learn how to ask these questions and to understand that there are lots of episodes that are happening because there is a pattern. We need to identify, because many times we use chems because of the same reason why we used chems 2 weeks ago. And we need to obviously answer the fourth question is, taking all this information into account, what could you do to prevent that episode from happening? As I said in the beginning, one of the things that resources that we have, apart from who I can call, places where I could go, things that help me to relax. Sometimes a big problem that people find is that if they don't use chems, they don't know what to do instead. And this is when I'm talking about planning ahead. If someone is interested, we will put this in the website, but if someone is interested, we have this, give me a second. We have this, can you see? We have this list of activities or things that you can do if you don't want to use chems. If I'm going to be vulnerable on Friday, why? Because I'm going to feel bored. There are lots of options here. We will put this in the website. If someone wants it, you can email us to info@Global Chemsex Toolbox. We will send it there. And it's very important because many times we use chems because we don't know what to do instead. When I feel angry, I don't know how to deal with my emotions. What else can I do? I'm going to, you know what, I'm going to call my dealer. Or sometimes it's about feeling sad, feeling depressed, feeling lonely, etc. There are many things in that list that maybe don't apply. For example, go and play with your pet. If you don't have a pet, and you cannot use that option, but you don't really need all those options. If you need to plan ahead your weekend because next week you don't want to use, or tonight you don't want to use, work on this. We will try to put this list as soon as possible. You know where to find it. And yeah, I don't know, guys, if Jorge and Justin, I don't know if there is any question before we go.
No questions right now, so I can give some closing remarks and let everyone know what's in store for next week. Thank you, Ignacio, for all of that. This completes our first educational workshop. We have 7 weeks remaining. As a reminder, this workshop's not intended to be a replacement for therapy. It's rather one of many tools in your toolbox of resources. So if you go to the bottom of our homepage at globalchemsextoolbox.com, you'll see additional resources linked at the bottom of the page. You can find many resources and links to find professional help there. So please spend some time with that on our site for more articles, blog posts, video links, everything you could need. Before you go, we'd love to see where everybody is coming from. So if you want to just go into the Q&A and just let us know what city or country you're in, we'd love to just see the footprint of everyone where they're at. Also, please remember to watch that TED Talk by Johan Hart. You can ask us more questions at info@globalchemsextoolbox.com. Give us a little time to answer your questions, please. And then please spread the word to friends and loved ones who may be struggling. We're so thankful you joined us today. We look forward to seeing you next week. We're going to use this same Zoom link, and this will be the same time for next week. And we look forward to talking more about how to manage cravings. Thank you all for joining, and hope to see you next week.
And just one thing, we will upload the videos on YouTube. It will be also in the website. If for some reason you cannot join one session, they will be uploaded while we are running the course for 8 weeks. So we will try to make everything as easy as possible. So thank you everyone for joining. We will be back next week, same time. And as remember, if you need anything, you know where to find us, and email us and we will reply shortly.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.